Welcome to another movie review, and today I'm going to do another movie released in 1960. It's called Wild River, directed by Kazan, the screenplay by Paul Osborne. It's based on a combination of two novels, one Dunbar's Cove, written in 1957 by Borden Deal, and Mud on the Stars, written in 1942. Written by William Bradford Hoy. Kazan is also responsible for the production and the cast. In the lead role is Montgomery Clift. He plays Chuck Glover, who works for the local authority government. Jo Van Fleet plays Ella Garth, who's the central character in this drama. She's a grandmother. Albert Salmi is R.J. Bailey. J.C. Flippant plays Hamilton Garth. Many members of the Garth family we witness. James Westerfield is Cal Garth. And Bruce Dern chips in with a very small role as Jack Roper. And Lee Remick plays Ella Garth's granddaughter, Carol Garth Baldwin. And she is a lead actress in this movie. Now, the movie is set in the 30s. Location is Tennessee, southern states of the US, of course. It's early 1930s, and it focuses principally on the social and economic consequences of increasing levels of flooding in the area, which has provoked the government to build a dam, and this is going to lead to significant impact on the community, particularly areas at risk of excessive flooding. Now, some of these communities are being forced out by the government, and the government is using compulsory purchase orders to get them out. The impact of the ban is going to lead to these areas being flooded throughout the year and thus uninhabitable. The Thames Valley Authority is the government organisation responsible for conducting purchases of land that will be flooded and to get the residents out. And Chuck Glover, the lead character, he's given the responsibility to carry out what is quite a controversial action with many residents not too enamoured at losing their homes. Anyway, he has the unenviable job, and we find out early on that he's got to persuade one Ella Garth, played by Cleve, an 80-year-old woman, to leave the home which she has located on an island, and she lives there with members of her family and also a significant African American population who are largely destitute, poverty stricken, and she's enabled them to have a life as such by helping her out with various bits and pieces, chores, to maintain the land, and their reward is that they are able to live there, and this government decision is going to impact that community as well. And so that's Chuck's job. There are what is described as suitable premises for them to be relocated, but we don't really learn a great deal about this, but it hints that it's not exactly going to be very attractive. So they're at the point where they're proceeding to demolish all the properties in the flood-ridden areas, and they're having to remove the surrounding trees. And one Ella Garth presents as a very cantankerous individual to the authorities, and is adamant that she will die on her island and she is never going to leave. However, young Chuck is remarkably confident that he's going to change her mind. quickly realises the realities of living in this part of the world, specifically racism, which is linked to poverty. The first problem he has is that he's wanting to employ men to clear the land of trees, etc., and properties. And with a large Negro population, black African American, he sees them as a source of labour. However, he has failed to recognise the big racial problem in Tennessee, and the white working class population are threatened to walk off their jobs if there's any sign of blacks being employed. Chuck also ventures onto the island to try and get his first opportunity to talk with Ella, and he ends up getting thrown in the river by one of Ella's family, Joe John Garth. This forces him to change tack somewhat, and he starts to work on other members of the family to try and change their desire to remain with Ella. And here he comes across the granddaughter, Carol, who's a widow, has 2 children, and he's extremely loyal to her grandmother. So Chuck takes a bit of a shine to Carol, and his persuasive nature starts to have some inroads, and he starts to bring Carol round to the reality of the situation, albeit to vacate the island. And the benefits of not being there are part of his pitch. This movie touched me tremendously, it has to be said. Firstly, Kazan tackles the politics head on. A strong picture of the racism in the area, plus the government imposing its will on the people with regard to their own property and using various falsehoods to muscle their way in and convey the with regard to Ella. She's a very proud, stubborn old woman, and she's able to convey very vividly to Chuck that she has been there throughout her life. It's her way of life, so to speak, the pieces of the land, the community feeling that's been generated. And we see this vividly and we hear about it when she takes a walk with Chuck around the land. The fact that her husband and the relatives are all buried in plots on the land is another marked fact that needs to be taken into account with regard to depth of emotions here. And of course that is going to be taken away as well. And the basic human rights issue versus progress collides with the old cultures, the old customs, and the individual's experiences in life, and what value do we place on these. And alongside, of course, there is this romantic drama. Drama develops between Chuck and Carol, the feelings of both of them, which illustrate an uncertainty of taking the step forward towards being more intimate and being a couple. They arrived at this point from completely different paths in their life, and the movie throws up that issue about whether they're a suitable match or whether it's just 2 roads passing. Lots of focus on anxieties, particularly from Chuck. Carol's pretty committed to having a new relationship, having lost her husband. She has concerns for her children, having an adult male role model. But as I say, Chuck very hesitant to take on the responsibility. And of course there's the clash. She's from the north, which is somewhat more liberal, and she's from the south. So the cultural experiences are very different. Eventually change does start to happen. The Negro population move off the island, and then the granddaughter Carol decides to move back to her old house as the romantic attachment develops with Chuck. We do witness a very unsavoury aspect of racism regarding equal wages for equal work vis-a-vis black and white workers. And of course this very much epitomised what was happening in America in the 30s. The ending, well, I'm not going to divulge that. You can judge that for yourself. But it has to be said, this is a tremendous piece of work once again by Kazan. Lee Remick, in a very early role in her career, is very much engrossed in her southern role. And I believe she was born in the southern states, so that's probably why. A lot of raw emotion on display throughout. The traumatised early life we hear about from her purity, and some doubts about Chuck and her being a realistic match. Clift delivers a solid performance. He handles the hesitancy and tension in scenes with Remick with aplomb and exhibits his quality as an actor. It's an excellent movie, all told, and it's called Wild River. It's released in 1960, and I really do suggest you go and have a look at it.